Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So where we reached chapter 4 was when Ambarish Maharaj was offended. Well, he wasn't offended, but Durvasa Muni offended Ambarish Maharaj. And Ambarish Maharaj then was chased by Sudarshan. And he went all over the universe. Beyond, he went to spiritual world, to Vaikuntha. And Lord Vishnu advised him to go back to Ambarish Maharaj to get forgiveness in order for Sudarshan to stop chasing him. So this is a very nice verse, 5th chapter, 24th verse. So let's recite.
Gati yatha durvasasi so ambarisho divyo payo gati pavitram aharat Shri Vimoksham Vyasanam Cha Vikshaya Mene Svaviryam Cha Paranubhavam. After 1 year, when Durvasa Muni had returned, King Ambarish sumptuously fed him all varieties of pure food, and then he himself also ate. When the king saw that the Brahmin Durvasa had been released from the great danger of being burned, he could understand that by the grace of the Lord, he himself was also powerful, but he did not take any credit, for everything had been done by the Lord.
Excellent. So let's go into this. This is a very interesting chapter. Durvasa Muni's life is spared. In this chapter, we find Maharaj Ambarish offering prayers to Sudarshan Chakra, and we find how this Sudarshan Chakra became merciful to Durvasa Muni. So by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, Durvasa Muni immediately went to Ambarish Maharaj and fell at his lotus feet. Maharaj Ambarish, being naturally very humble and meek, felt shy and ashamed because Durvasa Muni had fallen at his feet. He was really humble and he didn't like it actually. And thus he began to offer prayers to the Sudarshan Chakra just to save Durvasa. There you go. Is Durvasa Muni holding the feet. And the devotee never likes that because he's actually always offering his obeisances, especially to the sages. So this was very unusual for Ambarish. Ambarish is a Kshatriya. Durvasa Muni is a Brahmin. And it's the other way around. The Brahmin will give blessings and the Kshatriya will touch the feet. This was a different situation now. So then, who is this Sudarshan, right? What is this Sudarshan? It's the glance of the Supreme Lord by which the Lord creates the entire material world. The origin of creation and is most dear to the Lord. So this is the description given of what Sudarshan is in these verses. He has thousands of spokes. He's the killer of the prowess of all other weapons. He is the killer of darkness and the manifester of the prowess of devotional service. He is the means of establishing religious principles and the killer of all irreligious activities. Without his mercy, the universe cannot be maintained. Therefore, the Sudarshan Chakra is employed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Very powerful. He's a personality. He's a person. A very important person from these verses of the Bhagavatam. So Ambarish Maharaj, he prays to the Sudarshan that if his family has ever given any charity to the proper persons, if they performed any ritualistic ceremonies or sacrifices, if they properly carried out their occupational duties and have been guided by the learned Brahmins and has pleased the Lord by their devotion, then what he's saying is, in exchange for all of this, please let Durvasa Muni be freed from the burning sensation caused by Sudarshan Chakra. So you see the kindness of the devotee. He doesn't want Durvasa to suffer. When Ambarish Maharaj thus prayed that the Sudarshan Chakra be merciful the Sudarshan Chakra, being appeased, refrained from killing Durvasa Muni, who thus achieved the Sudarshan Chakra's mercy. So his prayer was very emotional. He said, if I've done anything in my life, any bhakti at all, please protect, don't kill Durvasa Muni. So really a very compassionate prayer. This is a wonderful compassion. He could have just said, just do away with him. He's offended me. But he didn't. Instead, he was willing to exchange all of his piety for the protection of Durvasa. So this is the broad-mindedness of a devotee. Even though he was offended, or he wasn't offended, but Durvasa offended him. But yet he didn't want to take revenge. So Durvasa thus learned to give up the nasty idea of considering a Vaishnava an ordinary person. Vaishnav Jati Bhuti. Maharaj Ambarish belonged to the Kshatriya group, and therefore Durvasa Muni considered him lower than the Brahmins and wanted to exercise Brahminical power against him. So we've seen this Brahminical power. For example, when Vishwamitra tried to use his Kshatriya power against Vashisht, he failed, right? He failed. Simply, Vashisht held up his Brahman shaft or staff, and he defeated the Kshatriya, the Vishwamitra, very powerful. So Brahmanic power is very powerful. But Ambarish was not just a Kshatriya, he was a devotee, and a devotee is higher than a Brahmin. So the devotee's power is greater, even though he may not use it. Vashisht, he used the staff to stop Vishwamitra defeating him. Ambarish didn't even do that. He didn't even do that. He just folded his hands when the demon was coming before him. See the power of the devotee, way beyond that of even a Brahmin. By this incident, everyone should learn how to stop mischievous ideas of neglecting Vaishnavas. Durvasa realized the greatness of devotees of the Supreme Lord. For although he had committed an offense, Ambarish prayed for his good fortune. Nothing is impossible for devotees to do and to give up. Overlooking his offenses, Ambarish saved Durvasa's life. Very powerful, very, very powerful. Durvasa said that the heavenly beings will continuously chant about Ambarish's spotless character at every moment, and the people of this world will also chant his glories continuously. After this incident, Maharaj Ambarish gave Durvasa Muni some sumptuous food to eat, and then the king, who was standing in the same place for 1 year without eating anything, also took prasad. Durvasa said, please come and take prasad with me. Then the great mystic Durvasa Muni took permission and left, continuously glorifying the king. Through the skyways, he went to Brahmlok. His purpose in going to Brahmlok was to speak to the residents of Brahmlok about how powerful a devotee is and how a devotee can surpass every living entity within this material world. The so-called jnanis and yogis cannot compare to a devotee. Thereafter, because of his advanced position in devotional service, Maharaj Ambarish, who no longer desired to live with material things, retired from active family life. He divided his property amongst his sons, who were equally as qualified, and he himself took the order of Vanaprastha and went to the banks of the Manaso Sarovar to concentrate his mind fully upon Lord Vasudev. Anyone who chants this narration or even thinks of this narration about the activities of Maharaj Ambarish certainly becomes a pure devotee of the Lord. By the grace of the Lord, those who hear about the activities of Maharaj Ambarish, the great devotee, certainly become liberated or become devotees without delay. So very powerful to recite or remember these glorious pastimes of Maharaj Ambarish. What are the glories of a pure devotee? So this is Sukadeva Goswami just ends with some of the glories. Pure devotee cannot be understood even by intelligent man. Therefore, Durvasa first mistook Ambarish for an ordinary man, wanted to punish him out of anger. But Durvasa was persecuted by Sudarshan. His intelligence developed. The pain inflicted by Sudarshan was his great benefactor, delivering him from samsara and showed him the path of bhakti. So this was actually a blessing for Durvasa. So any questions, any comments?
Prabhuji,
Hare Krishna. Anime.
yes, Durvasa Muni, Amrish Maharaj, he was standing without any food for 1 year. Was it his austerity?
He was so worried. He was praying for Durvasa Muni's protection. He was so worried about him, he couldn't shift from that place for a full year. He was away for a full year, according to our time. Of course, in Durvasa's time, it's a moment, because he went to Brahmlok and then Shivlok.
Shivlok and then Ante to the Golok to see.
For him, it's a moment, but on earth, it was a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, and he continued the fast. He didn't finish. He didn't eat, because remember, he still had the guests to feed.
Yes.
Durvasa. So he still observed the etiquette. He's an extraordinary devotee. In Satya Yuga, the austerities the people could perform was much greater. We couldn't tolerate being hungry even by missing one meal. But in those days, they could. 1 year was nothing in many ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Okay, Prabhuji.
Okay. Thank you, Naliman. Okay, should we move to that? So this is the 50th verse of the 6th chapter.
Aho imam pashyata me vinasam tapasvina satcharita vritasya antarjale varichara prashanga pachayi vitam pramachiram vitam yat. Alas, by practicing austerity, even within the depths of the water, by observing all the rules and regulations practiced by saintly persons, I lost the results of my long austerities simply by association with the sexual affairs of fish. Everyone should observe this fall down and learn from it.
Right, so interesting. This is a different aspect now. We're going to talk about different pastimes. And this is a pastime of Sharabha Muni, very interesting pastime. He lost all of his huge austerities simply by seeing two fish mate. So we've got to be very careful in this material world. Okay, so the chapter's name is The Downfall of Saubhari Muni. After discussing the descendants of Maharaj Ambarish, Sukadeva Goswami describes all the kings from Shashada to Mandata. And in this connection, he also describes how the great sage Saubhari married the daughters of Mandata. So Ishwaku's sons, Maharaj Ambarish had 3 sons, Virupa, Ketuman, and Shambhu. The son of Virupa was Prashadashva, and his son was Rathitara. Rathitara had no sons, but when he requested the favor of the great sage Angira, the sage begot several sons in the womb of Rathitara's wife. So that was sometimes quite happened. The king or the Kshatriya may not be capable of giving sons, but they would request the sages to provide the children. Like the example in Mahabharata is Vyasdev. Satyavati asked him to begot children in her son's wives' wombs. When these sons were born, they became the dynasty of Angira and Rathiratara. The son of Manu was Ikshwaku, so another son of Manu, Ikshwaku. When Manu was sneezing, we heard this before, Ikshwaku was born from Manu's nostril. Ikshwaku had 100 sons, of whom Vikukshi, Nimi, and Dandaka were the eldest. The sons of Maharaj Ikshwaku became kings of different parts of the world. So he had 100 sons. 25 of his 100 went to the western side of Aryavrat, 25 went to the eastern, and the three prominent sons, Vikukshi, Nimi, and Dandaka, they stayed in the middle, and the rest of the sons were in the north and the south. Vikukshi's punish. Yes, Viranj.
Guruji, you told that 25 sons wished like that. I heard a lecture that I heard that well, that is means Yudhishthira Maharaj sent Nakul Sade in 4 directions.
Yes, that's correct.
So
Similar.
they called all opulence and means Rajasuya sacrifice means one other kings have to accept the king as the king of the world. So they fought with all the kings in west, north, south, east.
That's correct, and that's how they established the supremacy of Yudhishthira. In this case, there was no Rajasuya Yagya performed. It was just.
But they went in directions, not
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But it doesn't say they did a Yagya as such.
But they became kings in different directions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So Vikukshi's banishment. Because of violating sacrificial rules and regulations, one of the sons, Vikukshi, was banished from the kingdom. When Maharaj Ikshwaku was performing Shraddha ceremony, he ordered his son Vikukshi to go immediately to the forest to bring some pure flesh. So in those days, they used animal flesh for sacrifice, Shraddha. Vikukshi killed many suitable animals, but he became fatigued and tired and hungry as well. And he forgot, he ate a rabbit that he had killed. Now that was not a good thing. Of course, eating rabbits is not a good thing anyway, but especially when it's meant for the yagya. Vikukshi gave the rest to Vashisht, who could immediately understand that part of the flesh had already been taken by Vikukshi. And therefore he said that it was unfit to be used in the Shraddha ceremony. When King Ikshwaku was informed, he banished Vikukshi. By the mercy of Vashisht and the power of mystic yoga, Maharaj Ikshwaku attained liberation after giving up his material body. When Maharaj Ikshwaku expired, his son Vikukshi returned and took charge of the kingdom. He performed various types of sacrifices, and thus he pleased the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This Vikukshi later became known as Shashad, the eater of the rabbit. That's his nickname. So it also gives us some comfort that, you know, we came to this country, maybe some of us were eating some flesh because of the culture or the persuasion by the family or whatever. But we should understand that, you know, sometimes we do these crazy things, but like Vikukshi was at that rabbit, but he attained still the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's really very gratifying to know. It's comforting to know that we can still achieve amazing things. Vikukshi's son fought against the demons for the sake of the demigods, and because of his different valuable services, he became famous by different names. So these are some of his names. Puranjaya, because he helped the demigods conquer the city of the demons. Indravaha, because Indra became his bull carrier in the war. At first, Indra was not happy to do this, but Lord Vishnu came and ordered Indra become his bull carrier. Kakutsta, because he fought by sitting on a hump of a bull. So this is really a valiant personality. This is Vikukshi's son. After conquering the enemy, the saintly king Puranjaya gave everything, including the enemy's riches and wives, to Indra. The son of Puranjaya was Anena. The son of Anena was Prithu, and the son of Prithu was Vishvagandhi. The son of Vishvagandhi was Chandra, and the son of Chandra was Yuva Nasva, and his son was Shravatsa, who constructed Shravatsi-puri. So this is Puranjaya's, this dynasty. We went through these names: Anena, Prithu, Vishvagandhi, Chandra,
Prabhuji, who is Prithu?
No, that's not the same Prithu. That's another one. We got no idea who he is. Yuvana Nasva Shravatsa. And then we didn't come through these, but we will do in a minute. Brahadsva Kuvala Yesva, who had 21,000 sons. So we'll see that in a minute now. Kulabala Yesva. The sons of Shravatsa was Bradashva, and Bradashva's son was Kuvala Yeshva. The sons of Kulavasya were Tadvashva, Kapilswa, but Bhadrasva. He also had 21,000 other sons. In order to satisfy the king Utanka, the sage Utanka, sorry, Kuvala Yeshva killed a demon called Dundu. And thus he became celebrated as Dundumara, the killer of Dundu. But the 21,000 sons burned to ashes in the fire and emanating from Dundu. So he was a powerful demon. The son of the Dhashwa was Haryaswa, and the son of Haryaswa was Nikumba. The son of Nikumba was Bahulaswa, and the son of Bahulaswa was Krishashwa. The son of Krishashwa was Senajit, and his son was Yuvanashva. So these are the different dynasty of Kuvala Yeshva. We've been through all of those. Yuvanashva married 100 wives, but he had no sons. Therefore, he entered the forest, and in the forest, the sages performed a sacrifice known as Indra Yagya on his behalf. Once, however, the king became so thirsty in the forest that he drank the water kept for performing the yagya. So remember, this yagya was to provide a son, and he drank that water that was meant for the yagya. Consequently, after some time, a son came forth from the right side of Yuvanasva's abdomen. So he gave birth to a son because he drank the water. The son was very beautiful and had all good symptoms of a powerful king. He was crying because he was hungry. And the Brahmins wondered, who is going to look after this baby now? Because they were all Brahmins, they were around the yagya. So now the purpose of the yagya was to please Indra. And effectively, he's like the father. So he, who was worshipped at the yagya, came and he gave the child his index finger to suck. So in that way, this child was relieved of his hunger. The son became known as Mandata. Because Yuvanasva, the father of the baby, was blessed by the Brahmins, he did not fall victim to death because he just gave birth to a boy. So probably a very painful event. After this incident, he performed severe austerities and achieved perfection in that very spot. Interesting. Thereafter, Mandata became the emperor and ruled the earth, which consists of the 7 islands. Thieves and rogues were very much afraid of this powerful king. Therefore, the king was known as Trashadasyu, meaning one who is very fearful to rogues and thieves. Mandata begot sons in the womb of his wife, Bindumati. These sons were Purukutsa, Ambarish, and Muchukunda. These 3 sons had 50 sisters, and all of them became wives of the great sage known as Shaubari. So this is where Shaubari Muni comes in now. Mandata, Bindumati, 3 sons, and then the 50 daughters. In this connection, Sukadeva Goswami described the history of Saubari Muni, who was engaged in austerity, deep in the water of the river Yamuna. But because of sensual agitation caused by fish mating, he fell from his yogic position and wanted to marry all the daughters of Mandata for sense pleasure. He transformed himself because he was an old man. So he went before the king, and the king wasn't particularly impressed by him. And he said, okay, you want to marry my daughters? You can ask their permission. I give them free right. If they want to marry you, they're welcome to marry you. King was very confident. He's an old man. Why would he want to marry me? Want to marry my daughters? Oh, sorry, why would the daughters want to marry him? He's such an old man. So he actually transformed himself into a very attractive young man. And all the 50 sisters wanted to marry him. So they were fighting amongst each other. They lost sisterly love and they had a fight. But he married them all. By mystic power, he created an opulent home and had 100 children with each wife. King Mandata was amazed and retired. Saubari Muni enjoyed in this material world, but he was not at all satisfied, just as a fire never ceases blazing if supplied with drops of fat or ghee. Regretting losing the fruit of his austerities, Saubari accepted the order of Vanaprastha, performing very severe austerities, and thus he also attained perfection. So in this regard, Sukadeva Goswami describes how Saubari Muni's wives also became perfect. So this is the end of the chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita. Any questions, any comments? Everybody happy? Okay.
Haribol, Nabi? Hare Krishna?
Yes. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I was just listening to one of Shirama's classes where he's talking about having faith and belief in Shastra, because we say if Shastra says, and Sukadeva Goswami says, if the child gets born from man, this is amazing things, but yajna performed for specific reason, and if it's violated, then it doesn't work. And we have to just have faith. If it says, Shirama said, if the Shastra says that the whole universe is supported by 4 elephants, would you believe it?
Yeah.
And he said, well, I don't really know how. I can't explain how or why, but yeah, that's what I have to believe, So anyway, interesting, but so many interesting things. This Canto is amazing, actually. Some amazing issues come up and you think, really? This can go on? And this about, one of the king in this, in this chapter, or is it later on where he becomes a man-eater?
Yeah.
He gets cursed and that he will be a cannibal, he'll be eating man. And anyway, I think you pass it. So, okay, I'll let you carry on.
Oh, no, you carry on. Give us the instructions.
Oh, okay. It's that bit. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me go to my notes. I'll read it from there. So instructions, as far as chapter 5 goes, Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that Durvasa Muni was certainly a powerful Brahmin, but his acts against the pure devotee Maharaj Ambrish were no better than the activities of asuras. So here's Prabhupada trying to explain that, some activities tell what sort of qualities we have, so asuras get carried away and perform certain kind of activities. They may look like Brahmins or something. As stated in the Shastras, Dharma tu sakshat bhagavat paritram. So the word dharma refers to the orders or laws given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sarva dharma parityaja mamekam sharanam vraj. So we know that from Bhagavad Gita, that the real dharma is surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So therefore, real dharma means bhakti or devotional service to the Lord. So here it becomes clear what dharma is. We're not confused about, is it this religion? Is it this religion? Should I follow this? Should I follow that? The real dharma is actually that which leads you to doing devotional service to the Lord. In chapter 6, with reference to Ikshvaku's yagya, Srila Prabhupada mentioned in his purport. So Ikshvaku's yagya is the rabbit eater name, and he gets banished, and then these things were carried out in those days where flesh was used in yagyas and all that. So quoting from Brahma Vaiva Purana, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that Ashwamedam, I've got my glasses, so I'm outside. Grama Bandam Sanyasam Pala Ipalikam Deva Vratam Sutopatim Kalo Patrika Vaivratyat. So in this age of Kali, 5 acts are forbidden. The offering of a horse in a sacrifice, the offering of a cow in sacrifice, the acceptance of the order of sannyas, the offerings of oblations of flesh to the forefathers, and a man's begetting children in his brother's wife. So we should understand what is appropriate for this age of Kali, and Harinam Sankirtan as recommended yagya for this age. So these are sort of things were carried out in those days. And Srimad Bhagavatam kind of explains that there is something like, you just mentioned Angira, he begets children for that king because he didn't have any children. So then it's like, surrogate father or something, something like that. It's nothing new, when these sort of things happen here and these issues are questioned at times. Okay, Hare Krishna, Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. Okay, anybody else, any questions, any comments? Otherwise, we can go to the Nishinga Kabach. Huh? No. So, Indu Lekam.